Naxx has now officially been cleared in under 40 minutes. Naxx speedruns are getting crazy, and today we saw probably the biggest strategy, the most wild thing we've seen in Naxx speedruns this entire phase and pretty much ever. So today I had my boy Jason Kaplan on the stream with me to actually do a shoutcast live of this run. So I'm giving it to you guys here. If you like it, definitely make sure to let me know and how we can improve. The first section is going to be a little bit lower energy. It was at the very end of the stream where the videos of the initial pull was actually released. Congratulations to None of the Above for a sub 40 run, the world's first sub 40 run with 2 people dying to Frogger because they didn't show in the live run what's going on during the Razuvious pull. So this is us seeing it kind of quote unquote for the first time, right? So what's happening is obviously Phil runs in, pulls this first group. The Pat is not with them right now. Actually, it might be. Yeah, there's multiple Cavaliers. So they have the Pat there also. And then they also now have a bunch of other things getting pulled in. You can see them on the like little mini map right here. Everything else is getting pulled in. This is all from an MD of one of the hunters out in the outside area. And all of these weapons getting pulled in, not only the weapons, but soon is also gonna be Razuvious. So now they're gonna have Razuvious come in here as well. Coming probably in, that might be him right there, actually, because he's fast. Yep, okay, there he is. So Razuvious, Phil has to tank him at the beginning. You actually have to tank him, so use a ton of CDs because the ads, the understudies are slower than Razuvious himself. And now that they have the understudies here, they can pick them up and have them tank the boss. So now you can see one of the DK understudies is tanking the boss. They're fully engaged with Gothik. Basically this entire time, ever since pulling the very beginning of that first pull, is that they are fully engaged with Gothik. And now they're gonna have to burn Razuvious while the other hunter in the back here is pulling the normal Gothik pull, but they're using 2 hunters. One of them is pulling the normal Gothik pull and one of them is pulling in front towards Instructor Razuvious. Now, in a few seconds, or very soon, most likely, we will see them actually bring more pulls from in front of Instructor Razuvious. So they have to bring all of the pulls that are kind of on the bottom level of the military wing. They will deal with all of the other pulls later, but right now, they do need the hunters to start bringing all of the pulls on the bottom level. And you can see actually as the hunter is getting closer into range, that should mean that mobs should be getting closer. And what's happening most likely is that the hunter is now just getting buffed. So everything is coming that way. And we see things coming from the backside towards 4 Horsemen being picked up as well. And right now just being picked up by main tank Phil, right? Because he's in position to pick those up. DJXD taunts the boss. Red taunts the boss again, and they kill Razuvious. Now they have this Cavalier pack that comes from the front of the Razuvious room. It is essentially at the bottom of that ramp, like I was mentioning. You can see that they already have killed Instructor Razuvious, starting the raid right here on Gothik the Harvester. And that is the pull I was talking about earlier. That is the crazy thing. We have 2 hunters in the run. You'll actually notice that both hunters, actually, let me go to a better screen and I apologize for that. You'll notice that both hunters are out of range right now. So you can see that both hunters are out of range. We have Nevermetal and Segura. I don't know if I pronounced that well, on both sections where hunters are now pulling the actual trash from outside Gothik's room from both sides. So they've already killed Instructor Razuvious. We are already 1 minute and 30 seconds into the run, or into the next phase or second phase of Gothik the Harvester. And we are actually seeing this just happen very, very, very cleanly. The pulls from the beginning are going to come, and they're also going to send out or get all of their health stones ready. And now the gates are open. So we're on wave 16 already. 0 deaths from what we've seen, although we did not see what happened with Instructor Razuvious.
I'm so confused. How did the gates open on wave 16 and not wave 12 like normal? And are they pulling mobs from other wings with the other hunter, or what's happening?
So right now, also welcome, Jason. Right now, they have one hunter that's going back and pulling all of the trash that they can or that they need from the side where Instructor Razuvious is, which is like some DK pats. And actually in their first run, they missed some of the DK pats there. And then the hunter that is normally that jumped through the Gothik normal gate is also pulling those trash. So you can see these DK Cavaliers coming in right now. This is one of those packs that is right in front of Instructor Razuvious that usually is a little bit scary. It's one of those packs where you see the silences go out and you can actually see some people die. So now they're dealing with both of these at the same time, as well as they've already now dealt with Instructor Razuvious in Gothik's room.
Okay, so I think we need to clarify for the viewers, and I'm not gonna lie, for me as well, how did they get here then with all the trash in front of Razuvious?
This is a trade secret that I don't want to point out. Some guilds are doing it now, but basically essentially doing everything you can to skip past and to get all the way forward here. You can do things, it can take a while. Some things can be like stealthed all the way here, but the big thing you need is a warlock here so that you can start summoning, right?
So it's like it's like the spider wing like skip where you just have like invis pots or something and he boots through the mobs to get to a certain position to res the warlock to put up a stone.
Exactly. So they ran forward, they got there, and then you can summon everyone. The stone was still up and live in our POV when they kind of got there and after they turned streams on, which was after they killed Razuvious, just to make it all clear. But one thing I want to point out here is that, again, red, their Paladin is actually away right now. So they are moving in directly to 4 Horsemen. They do have to kill this pack, which is a little bit sketchy for the Unholy DKs. I would actually almost wager that the Unholy DKs don't do anything other than pretty much drop a D&D. If they have anything on CD here, you can actually see some of them already running forward because they don't want at all to proc any of their ICDs as they're about to move into 4 Horsemen. This does cost them a slight bit of time, actually, not being able to have that pack cleared already as they move into 4 Horsemen, but it's not bad enough that it'll actually hurt them. And this time save, this start to the raid will save them upwards of 2 minutes on the raid time, which could be the world's first sub 40.
So just to keep in mind as well here, right? In the past runs, they would switch from Zanzas to Flasks because they'd be going to Sapphiron next. They're actually keeping the Zanzas on this time, and then we'll be continuing through because obviously this is the first wing as well. So that's an interesting change for them, considering like the whole pathing is completely different from their prior run.
Yeah, they have to change pretty much everything, right? All of your CD timers, all of your weapon swaps, all of your maybe even like trinket swaps, everything is changed now because the entire pathing is completely different. And here they're going to focus on trying to kill all 3 of the horsemen at around the same time. Thane should die first because he's a little bit more intimidating with that meteor, but the most recent meteor just went out. So a lot of the DPS just swapped over to Lady Blamau. And as they get this down, they will be a lot faster than pretty much anyone we've really seen clearing this DK wing.
So people are saying that the PAL is actually pulling trash at the next area already for the team, so they can just go right into the next wing. I actually have no idea which wing they're gonna go into next. If maybe you can describe that for us, because like we're saying, the path is completely different. It changes everything about the run for them, and it looks like they're running back into military to clear the first initial packs. Okay.
So the Paladin, so what they've done now, right, is they've had to skip, or not had to, but they've skipped all of the first military trash before Instructor Razuvious. They pulled a little bit of it back into Gothik the Harvester's room, but you can't pull all of that back into the room. You would just wipe. So here's going to be a huge Giga pull into a second Giga pull where that Paladin is actually now using rocket boots and bringing everything else from the top floor, and they will deal with it all here and then move into their second wing. So in their last raid, they did miss out a little bit on some of the, like one trash pack in here they did miss out on. I think they got everything now, but I'm not 100% sure. But that's what the Paladin was doing here.
So as you were saying, though, I mean, that not having to run through military saves you just running time, just movement time, which is actually quite insane considering how big Naxx is. But it looks like they're going to transition to the normal A-bomb pull here, I would imagine, with the FAFs and everything like that, group them all up as well. You can see, what is that, Take Note sitting towards the back here as he pops his boots, trying to stay stealth as long as possible for that energy regen. But here they go again, another big pull here. This could be very dangerous, but the FAFs make it quick work.
Yeah, they've actually kind of honed this pull down very well. I think NOTA is one of the cleanest at doing this in the world. Is just, if you can always consistently get this pull down and never have anyone die, you pretty much don't need to start here. And a lot of guilds were starting here on purpose because it was very easy to lose someone. If one person doesn't FAP, then they get stunned and you are just dead instantly. For the most part, if a tank ever doesn't get a FAP off, stunned, dead instantly. So timing out those potion CDs is really important, especially with 4 Horsemen, where you have to actually pre-pot the fight instead of trying to potion at like a very particular time to make sure that that cooldown is back up for this next pull.
Am I seeing corpse explosions?
Absolutely.
That has to be a change, hasn't it?
That is one of, here I'll switch over to Unholy DK POV, and Corpse Explosion is so incredibly strong for overall damage. It was actually nerfed a little, quite significantly for the damage it does, relatively recently, because you no longer can Corpse Explode your own ghoul for a huge DPS boost, because then your ghoul is no longer there for the next 30 seconds. You don't get the new timer on respawning a ghoul for the next 30 seconds. So they are going to wait here for Patchwerk to come to them. That does not necessarily hurt them in time, but it was like 3 seconds of kind of a little bit of a delay.
Yeah, I mean, 3 seconds though in the grand scheme of things, considering no guild's really coming close to their timings. I don't think that's going to matter too much for them, but look at the armies coming out from every DK. That is a thing of beauty. What I'm curious is, and I kind of wish, is actually Phil. I want to see his point of view tanking, because some of the pulls he's doing, like for instance, the first pull here before Patchwerk, as we get into this wing, into this section, I'm wondering if he's shield walling, because, or maybe he doesn't even need to do that, because they have so much damage that typically if you pull that second A-bomb pack in, you can get stunned and the tank can die. But I feel like they're able to skip some steps that other guilds can't, just because of that raw damage they have.
I think that there's a lot of, it's mostly like the trash packs are the scary things in this raid, right? So those ones are definitely where you're rotating CDs, you're rotating things like pain suppression, shield wall, all of that, and they reset with bosses. So you kind of got to be used to using them all the time on a trash pack or on a big pull where there's any sort of anticipation of potentially dying.
This is a ridiculous kill tell on Patchwerk as well. I mean, 20% already. I don't have a timer up to actually show like how long they've been fighting this boss, but that is just like absolutely insane. And if we like maybe turn our attention towards the later parts in the run, like where are their trials and tribulations going to be, considering the whole thing has changed in terms of where they start. I mean, obviously the next pull when they get into Grobbulus's room can be technically a little bit tricky. However, just like the initial pull here in the Construct wing, I feel like NOTA have really nailed down that pull with Grobbulus if needed.
Yeah, this is actually one of the next sections where you'll see they're actually going to pull everything with the boss. They have 2 people die here. Oh my gosh, 2 people actually died to Frogger in the run, and their Frost DK is not going to be there now. Their Frost DK is not going to be there for the pull. This is incredible. They actually were almost 2 minutes ahead of their last run on Patchwerk kill because they accidentally used Bloodlust in the wrong section on a trash pack. And I think that was a fat finger in the last pull. So they didn't pull Grobbulus with the trash here. This is a massive time loss, really sitting in the back. And you can see actually the Unholy DKs are just trying to make sure that they don't accidentally proc any of their trinkets, any of their helm CD or their meta gem, anything like that, so that they can make sure to get it all going for a huge snapshot.
And yeah, it is a little bit of a time loss, but you have to then wager not pulling Grobbulus, or sorry, pulling Grobbulus and not having your 2 players who are outside the room locked out from the gate versus having them in the fight now. Do you actually lose time, or do you actually save time because of having those additional players there? What I'm curious about though, Sarthe, the combat reses. Why wasn't just quick 2 combat reses and go? Why did they stop to actually hard res? Maybe were the combat reses used before, but they reset on Patchwerk? I'm actually really confused. That
is a great question. I did not see them use any of the combat reses. There weren't any deaths on Patchwerk. It seemed all clean. There was almost no point. Most likely, I would anticipate both of the druids sprinted forward and were a little bit too far for anything to happen. But if it wasn't for the Frost DK, or if it was maybe even an Unholy DK being the ones that were left back, if it was a Rogue or something, they would have probably just still pulled the boss. But losing out on that Icy Talons, that's 20% haste, which stacks on normal Unholy DK's haste. That's so important. Almost a full Bloodlust the entire raid, and especially for their gargoyles.
Okay, well, thinking about ahead here, obviously just going to kite Grobbulus through since they're done with them. They have Gluth next, which honestly isn't a big deal. They have one Shaman, so I'm imagining they're going to put the Earth Elemental down, though. I don't know about you, but I've been having problems trying to keep the Elementals alive. But then again, kill times. With this many DKs, you don't need the Elemental to survive for too long, to be honest, before it's done his job. But then right after that, they have Thaddius. But right before Thaddius, they do have the trash pulls on the left and right-hand side of the room that they have to group. I don't know how many shades they have, though, because, again, we kind of missed a little bit of the initial start. I would imagine from what I remember seeing, they don't have any. And I wonder how they're going to work around getting those 3 shades down in this fight if they don't get any in this pathway.
Yeah, I think they'll end up flagging everything. Last run, they actually had a bad patrol of the small ghouls. So they send at least one person to the left and one person to the right, and they try to ping on the mini map with like detect undead where things are, and of course give out something like detect invisibility. So hopefully they will have good patrols and are able to pull everything all at once. It does save time, but it's also intimidating. You do have to use personal cooldowns to make sure you don't die, because those big mobs can just do like a stomp, an AoE stomp, and it can instantly kill you if all 3 of them do it at one time.
Well, I will say this, right? I'm actually a huge hater when it comes to having these patrols added into the requirements for speedrun, because of just how far out of your way you have to go, but also because of how unlucky you can just get. But we see the guys come in, so they're good on that. They got the first Colossus straight ahead. They got someone pulling to the right. Looks like someone's pulling to the left as well here. So they have the 3 Colossi that they need, but I'm still not seeing a single shade here.
Yeah, I don't know if they have the shades that they need. I do agree. I'm not sure exactly. And shades are kind of one of the hardest ones on the timer to make sure you're keeping track of, because you don't see them at all times. There should have been invisibility, and they are going to rocket boots here to get into position to deal with Thaddius. But it looked like the hunter that actually grabbed that Colossus also did use rocket boots. So I'm not sure if he did have detect invisibility and was able to flag a shade, or if they have plans for that later on.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we're definitely going to have to keep an eye out for. I mean, Thaddius is pretty just quick and easy work for them. But I want you to actually maybe go into this here for people who are looking at this speedrun, looking to improve. As a Death Knight, since you're now playing Death Knight with NOTA here, what's your typical rotation when it comes to your Gary? Do you pop Gary here on the initial mob? Do you pop Gary when it comes to getting onto Thaddius right away? Do you pop it when the Lust is used around 40%, if it's going to be used then? Like, in your opinion, like, where do you think the optimal time for Gary usage is?
It's actually, now it's changed. We used to gargoyle here on those first mobs so that you would have a second one that would pop during the Bloodlust if you have a late Bloodlust. But as you'll note, they actually only have 2 Warlocks now. So they only have 2 Warlocks and 1 Shaman. There's no longer going to be a double Bloodlust situation going out here. And the damage from Unholy DKs is so important that they will Bloodlust here right away, and everybody will go for their huge snapshot. Now, it actually means more for the raid to have those gargoyles Bloodlust before the even polarity goes out, because it actually increases the damage throughout the raid so much with those 7 Unholy DKs and 1 Frost DK.
So as you mentioned before as well, right, with the change in the pathing they're doing, there's like a billion things you have to pay attention to. There's gear swaps, there's trinket swaps. I would imagine going into this fight, very important to potentially trinket swap over to that Mark of Nomergan, as you like to call it, if you have it, obviously, right, over the weight stone, just because you need to control that proc for that Lust on Thaddius, and you can't really afford to wait around 45 seconds before he spawns, meaning you're not doing damage to the 2 adds. Or am I wrong on that assumption?
Absolutely correct. There's a lot of times in this raid now where you're switching between Mark of I guess I'll call it the real name, Mark of Norganon, and Meteor Right Whetstone, where you actually have to like decide Am I going to be using Meteorite Whetstone during this section? If so, I'm going to need a trinket swap before I get in combat with trash, or else it's going to be on internal cooldown when I pull a boss. And am I going to be needing to either see a Bloodlust late, or am I going to need a target when I'm going to Bloodlust? Or if it's a short fight, you can switch onto that Mark of Norganon and actually be able to pump huge. It's very important and very key to be able to time your actual procs. It's one of the biggest things I've ever seen from an DK, and it adds so much to the challenge of the run.
I think people who don't speedrun don't understand like truly how difficult it is to get your trinkets on at the right time, because not only are you playing the game of, okay, what's my internal cooldown on my trinket, but you're also playing the game of, when are we going to pull the next pack? Do I even have time to get my trinkets swapped before the next pack and stuff like that? It's very difficult to do, but as we're seeing NOTA, I mean, the pinnacle of greatness when it comes to doing things like this. And it looks like they're going to be going over to Spiderwing next. So this one should be pretty typical, but I'm curious on how they're going to do this initial pull, and if they're going to continue to use that gargoyle, not the gargoyle, the zombie, whatever you want to call it, to actually pull the forward mobs here.
Yeah, they actually had, in their last run earlier today, they were 2 minutes ahead of world record. And they actually, there you go, you see the pet going and doing the pull there. So they're zooming into the boss. Unfortunately, in the run earlier today, they did have Phil get hit by one of the like death grips from those mobs, because those spiders just grip your tank or grip someone random and pull them to you. So what you need to do here is, as we're seeing, is using your pets to pull them so that they're not targeting anyone in the raid, and then zooming by with rocket boots instantly. So that
you saw what they did too, right? Because they actually hid behind that little lip on the hallway, so they can't be in line of sight of those as well, just to be extra safe. I mean, it takes like a quarter of a second to do that, so a really smart time save in the long run, I'd say, for them in terms of consistency. But we're going to see Anub'Rekhan go down here, so we're going to be heading over to Faerlina next. And again, Faerlina trash, relatively simple. They have the mage, they have the paladin. I'm imagining they're going to go for the paladin pull to group everything up together and then blast that one down. But I would say like Spiderwing, probably the easiest wing in Naxx for speedrunning. I don't know if you agree with that or disagree with that.
It used to be the scariest because of the Faerlina pull. If one thing went wrong, you would see like guilds on amazing pace just wipe it up and GG, see you next circus. But now it's relatively like it's kind of scripted. You definitely know what's going to happen at all times. They actually had a death here also in the last run, so just making sure that nobody dies to these skitterers. They did seem to aggro on someone in the back, but everyone should be fine. You'll probably have a DK just pick up the aggro on those and then go in and move forward. It is definitely the fastest wing, and one of the hardest parts of this wing is just that first pull into a noob. If they can make sure that nobody gets gripped and they get to have to slow down and can pull everything into the boss room.
I actually want to bring up a topic maybe we can discuss here, because I don't think there's anything crazy happening in terms of like changes to pathing, changes to way they pull stuff. But I think, again, something people don't really understand when it comes to speed runs is NOTA's running 2 healers, right?
Yes, 2 heals. They've dropped down to 2 healers for this whole run.
So to do 2 heals, again, something I don't think people understand, it's not only about the caliber of your healers and how good they are, but it's about the caliber of your DPS and how much damage they avoid. It is ridiculously hard to go down to 2 healers with the amount of raid damage that can be taken by the entire raid and survive it. And I love seeing that NOTA's DKs, like, again, using like every cooldown they possibly can on trash packs that they're assigned to mitigate damage. Rose using evasion, cloak to mitigate damage. That's something that's really, I think, not focused on a lot when it comes to guilds who are interested in speedrunning or who are trying to speedrun, because that can be the difference between having to run 3 healers and being able to run 2. And thinking into Ulduar, dropping healers is going to be difficult right off the bat, which you probably won't see. But long term, dropping healers is going to be so important to just push bosses faster, push them quicker, push them through different phases or different mechanics that you get to avoid eventually. Like Freya, for instance, right? With the healing buff she gets, maybe you can kill her when you still have 2 waves left to go, and you can off-tank those instead of just going for her on the last one or going for her when you've cleared all the waves. It changes the way the game is completely played, especially in speedruns. Yeah,
the fastest time save in any run at any point, or the first thing you do to save time and move faster, is always going to be drop healers. If you can also eventually drop tanks, what we see in this run especially is that Phil is, for the most part, almost solo tanking everything. DJXD is really going to be in cat form 90% of the time, unless he really needs to tank something. And then if something needs to be pulled and brought to them, they have hunters as well as paladins almost always set up to deal with that so that your off tank can pretty much be a DPS the whole time. And the first tank drop we did was from 3 tanks to 2 tanks on Patchwerk, but this is realistically getting as low as we can to pretty much 1 tanking the entire raid, and going down to that 2 healer situation. You really need to avoid as much incoming damage as humanly possible.
So let me ask you then about that, right? Because there's always people saying, why are you taking a warrior? Paladins do so much better when it comes to trash and solo tanking. I think one of the major reasons Phil is allowed to play warrior here is the fact that they run 4 rogues, is that they have those rotating trick cycles to always make sure everything sticks to them on trash.
And I also
and actually shade as well. And
they get the second shade, so this helps out. I think they also have pretty good patrols right here. So this is one thing I want to note, is that this spot in particular can be the worst for patrols. You might have to go and grab either the shade or those green spiders. They can be really, really far. So it worked out really well for them here. This is actually, even with the slowdowns on Frogger, should be on pace for definitely world record. I'm not sure if they'll get the sub 40, but this is definitely the fastest I've seen go. And they do have skitterers come in here, which I didn't even notice them skip them and bring them in, which is actually a phenomenal play if they meant to. I'm not sure if this was meant. I don't know if they skipped them on purpose and had to get those killed.
I'm not sure they needed those, unless they left like a totem back to purposely pull them into the room because it was so far away, right? They're like, the pathing is crap. We know it's going to come towards us eventually. Let's just leave a totem behind. It'll pull us into the room, and then we can continue to keep no time losses happening. But in terms of rogues, I think, yeah, all 4 rogues actually got the vanish there on Max as well. So that was actually perfectly done here to maximize uptime and maximize kill time.
Yeah, they're going to zoom forward. That's already killed 2449 of Maexxna. They've dealt with this. Now they're going to do the mage pull into the Plague Wing. So you'll see the whole raid will wait back for a second, stay a little bit LOS, and wait for Phil to get ahead. Phil needs to get a charge in, and he'll do a shockwave to get a lot of AoE threat, as well as that initial stun on the mobs. And then in this section, one thing that's very important, and I really want to point out that most people don't notice, is obviously you can't let the gargoyles heal, but the plague slimes move extremely slow, and they have a ton of HP, and they are immune to things like diseases and poison. So they're not taking nearly as much damage as the rest of the mobs you're fighting here. So you want to make sure you try to kill them all around the same time. And that means focusing on the slimes whenever it's not a gargoyle healing, to make sure that everything dies all at once. And they did actually miss out on this patrol. This is going to be a little bit sketchy moving into Noth.
Yeah, well, they're going to see the parachute through, so they're going to have 3 gargoyles plus Noth. Remember, 2 healers. Keep that in mind from before. Obviously, they have Divine Saxony to deal with this damage, but they're going to have to burn Noth as quick as possible here. But they should be able to one cycle with the amount of DKs they have. It's just the raid damage that's going to be done, and they're not going to directly focus any of these gargoyles. They have to kill it with cleave, which is going to mean the stacks are to get higher. Luckily for them, they did reset before getting into this room, but they're still going to have to turn and focus those gargoyles once they start to heal, meaning less damage onto Noth.
I don't even know if everybody reset too. Look at some people. Riv, you can see small in the corner, has 20 stacks right now. Again, 2 healers, like you're saying, and they have to deal with these gargoyles soon and make sure that they don't heal up, but also make sure that Noth doesn't get that teleport to happen. And this is a ton of raid wide damage, and extremely impressive from the heals here. That was actually super sketchy. They weren't able to drop their stacks, and they got pretty high.
I mean, I know guilds who can't get to or can't deal with 20 stacks when you have 4 healers, you know? Like, this is just a really testament to how good they are. And again, like anti-magic shell, like anything to reduce damage here as they're continuing to clean up Noth here. They have, I believe, more than enough time to close this knot. 20 seconds left to go, not too big of a deal. And then you have the trash to Heigan, which relatively simple, but again, those plague beasts, am I allowed to curse? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, you're allowed to curse.
It can be a bitch. I will say that. We definitely lost time on them before because we just didn't catch like the second one that we needed, but they get the first one right away. And again, 2 hunters should easily be able to pull in the second. And I would imagine Heigan should be as clean as hell as well. It should be a 1 phase on that.
Yeah, they actually, so the Heigan strategies, which one of the things that they did, were one of the first people to do, was have everybody just eat the damage on Heigan and not do any of the dances. But now they're actually going to all stand on the platform for Heigan. Phil is going to position the boss at first, and there's about 8-ish seconds before he does his first kind of AoE mechanic, the like plague or poison, and what you want to do is make sure you summon your gargoyles in that position away from where he's going to position the boss at the end, so that they don't get hit by anything that the boss is dealing with. They're not slowed or anything like that. So all of the gargoyles are summoned, and then the boss is moved. And now Heigan is moved into position. And a big thing here, again, with so low of healers, is everyone making sure that the gargoyles are actually removed of diseases or poisons. And we also are going to have, that means potentially even the rep Halley maybe using globals sometimes to make sure that those Garys are staying alive, because look at the DPS meters.
I don't see any pink on damage meters, so that man better be dispelling all the pets, to be honest. But again, like things like this, that NOTA, did they invent this pulling Heigan there, waiting for 4 globals, then pulling them away?
NOTA was the first person that I've seen do this, and I think it was a beautiful strat. And it was actually like a week after they did another one. AOT, a Chinese guild actually came up with it. The Chinese guilds actually are phenomenal at always coming up with strategies that they're kind of like on the forefront always. And that's one thing that we're not seeing so much this phase yet, with noobs having to kind of re-roll and Blizzard kind of backing out of China with those deals. But apparently noobs will be speedrunning again soon. They did have issues with COVID this week, but they will be back soon.
Oh, wow. Well, that's really unfortunate for them, honestly. But yeah, I completely agree. Like they have, I think, have been able to come up with strategies that really not many people have been able to think of and really implement it on a really strong scale. On the note of the gargoyle positioning with Heigan, I feel like going into Ulduar, because again, how much damage is being done across the raid, I think there's potentially going to be fights where you have to do something similar yet again, just to make sure that they survive, because the amount of damage you do. And I'm honestly really curious to see like what China does as a region. Obviously, the other regions as well. I'm not just a China fanboy. And what they come up with in Ulduar, because of how many things that have yet to be discovered in that raid, because obviously we haven't even had it begin just yet. But we got Loatheb going down here, and again, relatively easy fight, which means we only have. Actually, this is the last wing, isn't it?
This is literally the last swing.
Oh, wow.
They're at 30 minutes right now, and they're dealing with Loatheb. The world record as of earlier today to clear and entering into the last wing was 32:55. So if Loatheb dies anywhere under the next 2.5 minutes, they are significantly ahead of time. So currently, this is the run. This is the golden run. And what they're really trying to do is be the world's first sub 40-minute run. So this is a very high chance. 32. Did I say 42?
I don't remember. I was actually focusing on the priest here on the right hand side of take note screen. You see him just spamming smite, use divine him as well, just to get the health up or the mana up of everyone across the raid, because again, they can't afford any downtime going into Sapphiron. They still have maggots coming in. I like this position. The healer is getting on the other side of Loatheb, so they have to run through the Death and Decays, run through Phil as well to even get close to hitting them, and they eventually get picked off by Cleave as well. But here comes Spore number 6. I would imagine they were doing free-for-alls on Spores, but looks like they're a little bit more composed here, getting 5 people yet again. I do kind of miss, though, I don't know about you, the taking the spores into Sapphiron's room, and then it got invalidated, then it got patched out where you can't do it anymore. That was fun. I'm kind of sad it's not there anymore.
That was so exciting that it limited your what pathing you could do. You couldn't do Loatheb into Patchwerk or into Sapphiron, which when Warcraft Logs decided that, I think was like putting everyone in a cage where you can't do whatever path you want to do, which would be the path that we're seeing right now, which has them about a little more than a minute ahead of last time's world record, which they need 1 minute and 8 seconds if they want to get the sub 40 run. So it's very, very close. But the Thaddius, back in the day, Thaddius into Sapphiron was the most fun, where you would pull the insane DPS and kill him in 19 seconds before the actual debuff goes out and you have to spread out or not die.
All right, well, here we go. Sapphiron coming up, 2 bosses left to go. You said they needed to enter into this at 30. Well, no, actually, that was the final wing at 32 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I don't remember what you were saying. I actually don't understand what you were saying. I think it was like they enter the final wing at 32, but they're already done with the whole wings. They're into Sapphiron's now. Yeah,
so the kill of Sapphiron in their fastest run is 35:06. So currently, I believe they are they're over a minute ahead, but slightly over a minute ahead. So 32:55 was when all wings were cleared, and they're looking very close. They do need to have a very clean Kel'Thuzad and a very clean Sapphiron if they do want to get that sub 40, since they need to be at least a minute and 9. Yeah, a minute and 8 to get it.
It's going to be tough, but I wonder if they're going to get trolled a little bit on the mind controls. I'm not sure if they figured out a way to deal it, because in the last run they did, like the big 41-minute marker, they got one mind control and it was on 2 people. Immediately pulled them in and killed them, and then they obviously combat res them as well. I wonder if they're going to get potentially trolled and have 2. I'm not sure if there's a way to work around that. I honestly don't know. Maybe you do.
There's a little bit. That's actually one of the fights that actually definitely has some RNG. I've seen fights where Kel'Thuzad doesn't do a mind control the entire time. There's the RNG of that. The RNG of if the melee get frozen by his like AoE ice block, and also if the melee are targeted with the void zones, because all of that means downtime on DPSing the boss. All of that hurts on getting it down faster, and that actually can make the difference between if they're going to get this 40-minute or above run.
Here we go, 3351, the kill on Sapphiron here. And like you said, yeah, I mean, look at the melee they have. They have 3 groups with melee plus tanks. Like, plus you have maybe even Pallies in there, but they have to keep the Pallies, I'd imagine, spaced out. They shouldn't really need the mana. I think Holy Pallies down to about 25, 30%-ish. But it all comes down to this, right? Like you said, if they can pull it off, they have to get, I still want to say, a little bit lucky with the RNG, but we're going to see how things are going to go here. And that was even a little bit of a late come in from some people towards the back here. You can see the days coming as well. I think that was filled to Shockwave right away, realizing that these A-bombs were going to be hitting people. So it gets a little preemptive and tries to save them by going in right away. And again, they're not going to lose any time there. They're not going to gain any time there. It's just about keeping everyone alive and keeping up all those cooldowns.
Yeah, it can be a little intimidating here. I've seen runs. I've been in a run where somebody was left behind there, and the skeletons instantly spawned, and somebody AoE'd to grab aggro on them, and it just instantly wiped the entire raid. So seeing the shockwave just in case the skeletons insta spawn, they got lucky that the skeletons didn't spawn right away. And also the gate between Sapphiron and Kel'Thuzad, the very first gate, can actually take a little bit of time to open, but it looked like on this run, and Drast actually pointed this out, that it did open extremely quickly. So currently, this is looking like it. They are significantly ahead. Their last Sapphiron kill was 35:06 is the time I have on Sapphiron kill. So this is absolutely looking like the golden run.
What was that Take Note just took, by the way, from his bags? He just popped something, and I can't tell what it is on his buff bar. I don't even see it on his buff bar. I'm not sure if he caught that. Scourgebane
Drought. So he popped this little 30-minute buff here. It's like 15 attack power, 30 attack power, 2 undeads. So you just want to keep this up at all times. It's just an extra little bit of attack power against undead. You get it from the Blood Elf starting zones or ghost lands. And oh my god, someone said KT despawn. As long as there's no KT despawn, that's the scariest thing that could potentially happen in this run, is if KT just despawns and bricks it. But as long as they have a clean run, this is actually gonna be it. And it's funny that they're gonna get this world record potentially with 2 people dying to Frogger. 2 people.
I mean, that would have been what they had to delay. I'd say 5 to 10 seconds at least. No, 10 to 15 seconds at least for those people who got in their room before they started Grobbulus. So they can go even further on that as well. But in your opinion, before KT spawns here, like I feel like NOTA has already like set the limit. Like there's really not much more time looking at this run that they could possibly cut out unless they change their comp drastically and put in, like you said, 70 unholy DKs.
It's actually now I think it's getting to the point where it's very optimized, right? Yeah. Where we're seeing 7 unholy DKs, one Frost DK, which is phenomenal. Frost DKs do incredibly well on overall damage, so they do really well to trash, especially if they decide to like Howling Blast a Skitterer pack. That's like the thing where everyone boosts themselves on overall damage. It's super cheesy. But the thing about Unholy DKs is the faster kill times, Unholy DKs can't really be beaten on boss kills, right? That's the whole point of bringing them. That's why you have so many rogues, and we've actually removed the extra 2 warlocks and brought more rogues and another hunter. Is that hunters can also do well on overall, and they were able to set up that beginning pull that we saw, that Gothik Pull, which was just so phenomenal. It is just bringing everything from both Razuvious's room and also everything between Gothik and 4 Horsemen to really just save time.
We got 18 seconds until KT comes out. I'm looking for any skeletons around that throne. I don't want to see anything near that man, as he's going to be spawning up here in a second. And Sarthe, I think this is going to be it. They got 37-48 at the moment, looking to close things out.
One scary skeleton! Kill him!
No.
Oh my god! I can't believe they let that get that close even. That was intimidating. So here we're going to see the Bloodlust instantly go out. And again, the RNG for Kel'Thuzad is going to be everything here. They could easily get even faster than, it's obviously a world record, but they could have the sub 40 definitely. And even by quite a few, only if they have good RNG on these melee groups. So we'll see if the melee groups get frozen, as well as how many of those actual void zones go out in melee.
Early mind control coming in onto 2. We can see Reggie and Holy Palace, they're going to lose a healer, I believe, off the bat. They're going to have to combat res those 2 up right away. You can see the Druids already shifting out as well here. The Garys are out. They're slightly moving. It looks like Phil, maybe it was the target of the first Fisher coming through, as we now have armies coming out as well. It's all coming in. It's the Frost Blast here onto the left-hand side. Melee squad going to catch out quite a few DKs. That's going to be quite a bit of downtime here. But you can see KT already down to 50%.
The Frost Blast also really intimidating here because they were down 1 healer right there, with Holy Palace Way actually being MC'd and killed. But we do have 2 of these actual void zones. Both of the first void zones have not been on the melee group. So there was the Frost Blast on the melee group and an early MC, which means they probably will get a second MC, but it still is actually good for them. It's still looking good. And they have 1 minute, a third void zone, not in the melee. So now we just have a Mind Blast to probably, or a Ice Blast to go out, and maybe 1 more MC. And that's pretty much going to solidify the run. So let's see how the RNG goes for that.
No, Sarthe, no MCs, no void zones on melee. This is going to be clean as hell here. KT down to 16-15% as he continues to chug through. You see the Hunters going back in to drop the traps. They're just pumping the damage through. I don't see where the other void zones are going, but no melee are moving. No Frost Blasts are coming in as well. No mind controls. And NOTA, 39-42 with 4% left here, Sarthe.
This is it. This is the golden run. There's the second MC at the very end, and it's done. 39-47, sub 40 run. Let's go, NOTA. Best guild in the world. Nobody can compete. I don't know what you guys are talking about. That was a sick run, and also still, again, with 2 deaths to Frogger. What was your favorite part, Jason? What was your favorite part of that run?
Probably the 2 deaths to Frogger, actually, because it lets me know that it's not bots playing for NOTA. It's actually humans and people, you know? It's not like a script or something that's been able to do this for them, that they show they can be human. But no, I think obviously the initial pull, right? Getting through the initial trash, able to use 2 Hunters to pull from both sides to get everything in to minimize that downtime. I'm also seeing apparently Phil going to be getting his shield. It dropped. I'm not sure if it actually happened or not.
Finally, I kind of want to go back into Take Notes POV and show that initial pull. It's really, honestly, that is like the biggest thing, the biggest time save we've seen. That was the 2 minutes that they needed to get sub 40. It was purely that. And even with the scuffed run a little bit, it was like just done, right? As long as they dealt with that pull cleanly. Even with the deaths to Frogger, they are pulling everything. They started the streams after they had already dealt with killing Instructor Razuvious, and they've dealt with Instructor Razuvious in Gothik's room. And again, those 2 Hunters just on both sides of this room outside, just pulling everything they can into this room to save time.
Just ridiculous stuff. And honestly, I mean, with holidays coming up, with Oldwire right around the corner, we don't know the exact release time. I want to see what they're going to do in Oldwire. I want to see, Sarthe, what you're going to do until then. I want to see you step up here and get on that main squad right now. I want to see this run that you're doing tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, tomorrow double run for my None of the Above now mains. All of my characters are now transferred into the guild. I have joined None of the Above, announced it today, and tomorrow we have my first speedruns with the guild. So hopefully we'll have some incredible times, but I really excited on the guild in general. They currently now have, I believe, times 1 through 9, maybe, of the world records. Like, nobody is competing with them. They are actually in their own league of their own. Like, that's it. Without noobs right now and progress hiding logs, currently nobody is competing.
Ridiculous. I mean, they're what, 4 minutes ahead, basically? Well, I guess 3 minutes and 40 seconds ahead of second place at the moment of security. that I can see on the overall leaderboards. Insane stuff out of them, and honestly, well deserved. The amount of time they put in, again, the amount of research they do, the amount of preparation, the amount of like trials and testing. I mean, they deserve it. I think though the real test for me, Ulduar. We have to think about what's going to happen there. We have TOC coming right after. I would imagine you're not really going to speed run that. What's going to happen with Ulduar? I think Ulduar is going to be the real place to make yourself more known. And I think there's going to be a lot of guilds hungry to catch up to NOTA, to kind of follow their steps here, look at what they're doing. I think one thing I kind of dislike about speedrunning is that there's a lot of guilds who just kind of follow the number one or follow like top 5. They don't kind of like theorize themselves and test stuff themselves. But then again, not a lot of guilds out there that do speedrun have 4, 5 of the same character and can raid 4 or 5 nights a week to do that kind of stuff. But either way, fantastic run.
Yeah, I'm so hyped on that run. That was so fun. We'll definitely see what guilds actually end up pulling in Ulduar, and definitely we're waiting for more innovation. That's one of the things that some guilds are hiding their logs for, but realistically, if you're not competing for those world records or trying to be in the top 10 even, you're probably just seeing what worked for other guilds and trying to figure out why did they do it that way? How did it work? What were the strategies? And I think we're going to start seeing almost every guild now, after we've seen another minute saved here with Razuvious. Every guild should be starting, if they're trying to take any sort of speed run seriously, with the Razuvious pull that we just kind of saw, because they had already saved 2 minutes just by dealing with Razuvious himself in Gothik Room. Now that's 3 minutes off the timers when we're this close. That is like the biggest time save we've ever seen in a long time.
No, man, we're going to take it one step further. We're going to have hunters go pull Patchwerk and fight Razuvious and fight Gothik at the same time. This is like BlizzCon, circa 2007, when you had some guilds brought in to fight like 3 bosses at the same time that would never be fought together. No, I don't imagine that's happening. But if it did, then I called it. I'm a prophet.
Yeah. All right, Jason, thank you so much for coming on and hosting this with me. Really excited to see what we do in the future, as well as what NOTA does in the future with me now joining their team. Any last words, or anywhere people can find you so that they can watch you?
They can find me here on Sar Stream, but they have to sub to unlock that. No, I just honestly, thanks again for bringing me in, man. I know we had like a little pre-chat. It was great to do the run together. It was great to see it from start to finish this time, instead of coming in like past Gothik right before the run was over. I'm really proud of you, man, as well. You've been doing great stuff for World of Warcraft, great stuff for Classic, and I can't wait to see what you do in the future, man.
Thanks, bro. I fucking love you, dog. Thank you for hopping on, man. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you very, very soon. That was amazing. All right, guys, there you have it. Congratulations to None of the Above for a sub 40 run, the world's first sub 40 run with 2 people dying to Frogger. Massive thank you to Jason Kaplan for coming and helping me shoutcast that raid. Guys, if you have any feedback on how maybe I can improve, because he's a phenomenal shoutcaster, definitely make sure to let me know, because I want to be as good as possible at this, and then try to convince Blizzard to be down to do more of these. So